A Walk in the Woods, the unsolved case of Dr. Helen Davidson. It was a cold November morning in 1966 when the soldiers stumbled upon a horrifying scene in Hodgemoor Wood, Buckinghamshire. In a clearing, about a mile from an abandoned car, lay the body of a woman. Her face was disfigured, her eyes shoved back into their sockets, and yet, in a heart-wrenching display of loyalty, her wire-haired terrier Fancy remained by her side, having stayed with her through the night. The victim was soon identified as Dr. Helen Davidson, a respected local doctor whose brutal murder would send shockwaves through her community and leave behind a mystery that endures to this day. Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Nickel of Nickel Investigations. In this episode of our World True Crime Thursday series, we're crossing the Atlantic to Buckinghamshire in England to explore the case of Dr. Helen Davidson, a crime that's confounded investigators for nearly 6 decades. Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. It's a gripping true crime podcast uncovering unsolved murders, disappearances, and forgotten crimes from Ontario and beyond. Told with deep research, compelling storytelling, and a voice for the victims. Join us today, where every clue could lead to answers, and every case deserves a second look. Dr. Helen Davidson was more than just a physician. She was a cornerstone of the small town of Amersham. For over 20 years, she practiced medicine there, tending to the health of her neighbors with a dedication that made her a well-known and deeply respected figure. At 54 years old, she built a life rooted in service and quiet routine. On the afternoon of November 9, 1966, she left her home in North Road in her Hillman car, her loyal companion Fancy by her side. Her destination was Hodgemoor Wood, a sprawling 250-acre woodland known for its natural beauty and abundant bird life. A perfect spot for Dr. Davidson's favorite pastime, birdwatching. It was an outing she'd taken many times before, a peaceful escape into nature. But that peace was shattered. The next morning, her Hillman was found abandoned on the road between Amersham and Beaconsfield, an unsettling sight that sparked immediate concern. A search was launched, and it wasn't long before that soldier made his grim discovery in a clearing almost a mile from the car. Dr. Davidson's body lay there, Fancy still standing guard. The scene was one of shocking violence. The cause of death was a single, devastating blow to the back of the head, delivered with a burned poplar branch found nearby. But the attack didn't end with her death. There were signs of continued brutality. Her face had been ground into the dirt and her eyes were shoved back into their sockets, a detail that speaks to the ferocity of the assault. And yet, despite the savagery, there was no evidence of robbery or sexual assault. Her purse, her car, her dignity, none of it had been taken. This absence of an obvious motive would leave investigators grasping for answers in the days to come. As we move forward in this episode, we'll dive into the investigation that followed, the questions that arose, and the lingering theories about who could have committed such a senseless act against a woman so beloved by her community. Dr. Helen Davidson's story is one of tragedy and enigma, and it's one that deserves to be told. The initial police investigation. November 1966. Quiet corner of Buckinghamshire. The body of Dr. Helen Davidson is found in Hodgemoor Wood, a secluded spot just outside Amersham. The scene is grim, her skull fractured, her body partially hidden among the trees. The murder weapon? A burned poplar branch, pulled straight from the forest floor. This wasn't a planned execution. It felt raw, impulsive. And that's exactly where the initial police investigation begins. Stepping into the spotlight is Detective Chief Superintendent Jack Williams from New Scotland Yard. a man with a reputation for cutting through the noise. Known for his sharp mind and sharper demeanor, Williams takes charge, tasked with unraveling a crime that's already sending ripples through this tight-knit community. His first impression? This wasn't premeditated. The brutality, the makeshift weapon, it all pointed to a spur-of-the-moment killing. But why? What set this deadly encounter in motion? Williams and his team start with a couple working theories. Maybe Dr. Davidson, a respected local doctor, had stumbled onto something she wasn't supposed to see. Hodgemoor Wood wasn't just a peaceful retreat. Its dense thickets and hidden paths made it a perfect cover for shady dealings. Could she have interrupted illegal activity? A drug exchange, poaching, or something even murkier? Or perhaps the answer was closer to home. As a physician, Dr. Davidson had treated all sorts over the years. What if she crossed paths with a former patient harboring a grudge? Someone unstable enough to lash out when they saw her alone. Armed with these possibilities, the police hit the ground running. They round up known criminals in the area, anyone with a violent streak or a tie to the woods. They dig into psychiatric records, questioning patients who might have had a connection to Dr. Davidson. It's a wide net, but it comes up empty. No witnesses step forward. Who'd be wandering those woods on a chilly November day? Alibis check out, stories hold up, and trail goes cold faster than a winter wind. The investigation slams into a brick wall. Within weeks, the energy drains from the case. The lack of evidence, no fingerprints, no clear motive, starts to weigh heavily. Williams, for all his grit, can't find a crack to pry open. The murder begins to feel random, a one-off act of violence that defies explanation. That's a tough pill to swallow for a town like Amersham, where safety was taken for granted. By early 1967, the operation winds down. The manpower pulled to other priorities. Williams himself retires not long after, and Dr. Helen Davidson's file is relegated to a growing stack of cold cases at New Scotland Yard. But the story doesn't fade entirely. Fast forward to 1971, and the News of the World, a tabloid with a nose for drama, throws a lifeline. They offer a £100,000 reward for information leading to the killer's arrest. That's a jaw-dropping sum for the time, enough to turn heads and loosen tongues. Yet even with that kind of money on the table, silence prevails. No tips, no breakthroughs. The reward sits unclaimed. The case stays frozen. A haunting mystery locked in the past. That's where the initial investigation leaves us. A flurry of effort, a handful of theories, and a whole lot of nothing. As we'll explore later, this isn't the end of Dr. Davidson's story. Stick with us, because decades down the line, someone new picks up the thread. Monica Weller's re-examination. 50 years after the brutal murder of Dr. Helen Davidson in 1966, the case had faded into the shadows. A cold case with no answers, no closure. That is, until Monica Weller stepped in. An amateur sleuth and author, Weller took on this decades-old mystery with no access to the original police files, relying instead on her determination and grit. After 7 years of digging, she published her book in 2016, Injured Parties, Solving the Murder of Dr. Helen Davidson, boldly claiming to have cracked the case wide open. Weller's investigation was no small feat. She tracked down and interviewed original investigators and witnesses, piecing together fragments of a story long buried. She also gained access to files from Professor David Bowen, a forensic pathologist, and John Bailey, a forensic photographer, key figures whose records offered fresh insights in the investigation's early days. What she uncovered challenged the official narrative. and brought new questions to the surface. So let's break down her key findings. The last sighting, a timeline and question. First, Weller pinpointed the last confirmed sighting of Dr. Helen Davidson. She was seen at 4 p.m. on November 9, 1966, by a local GP. This detail clashes with the police's original assumption about when Dr. Davidson took her walk. It was November, and by 4 p.m. darkness would have settled over Hodgemoor Wood. Birdwatching, which Dr. Davidson was known to enjoy, seems unlikely in the dark. So what was she really doing out there that evening? Weller's discovery throws a timeline and the police's early theories into doubt. The crime scene. Hidden clues. Next, Weller turned her attention to the crime scene itself. The initial police report painted a tidy picture, a clean scene with no signs of a struggle. But Weller found evidence that tells a different story. Blood-smeared gloves and blood on nearby trees suggested a fight, a violent clash that somehow slipped past the original investigators. These overlooked details hint that the murder might not have been as straightforward as the police first thought. Forensic oversights. Missed opportunities. Weller didn't stop there. She highlighted a glaring gap in the 1966 investigation. Critical forensic tests were never done. No blood matching, no verification of the murder weapon. In an era before DNA analysis and modern forensics, this might not seem shocking, but it's a stark reminder of how much evidence could have been left on the table. Weller argues that these missed opportunities might have derailed the case from the start. The prime suspect, George Garbett. Perhaps Weller's boldest claim is her identification of a prime suspect, George Garbett, a living gardener who lived near Hodgemoor Wood. Garbett was a troubled man, bisexual, impotent, and a loner, with a World War II brain injury that left him with a metal plate in his head and documented mental health struggles. Weller paints a chilling scenario. Dr. Davidson, out in the woods, stumbles upon Garbett engaging in illegal homosexual activity. This was 1966, time when homosexuality was still a crime in England. It wouldn't be legalized until 1967. Fearing exposure and ruin, Garbett, in Weller's theory, killed Dr. Davidson to keep her quiet. The story takes an even darker turn 5 years later, in 1971, when Garbett committed suicide by setting himself on fire. Weller sees this as more than a tragic end. She interprets it as a possible sign of guilt, the act of a man haunted by what he'd done. The compelling theory is not the final word. Weller's investigation is gripping, no doubt about it. Her findings breathe new life into a case that had long gone cold, and her theory about George Garbett is provocative as it is plausible. But here's the catch. The murder of Dr. Helen Davidson remains officially unsolved. Weller's conclusions, while meticulously researched, are her own interpretations, not the official stance of law enforcement. Her work stands as a fascinating chapter in this enduring mystery, reigniting debate and curiosity among true crime enthusiasts. As we move forward, we'll keep digging into the evidence, the suspects, and questions that still linger over Hodgemoor Wood. Monica Weller may not have closed the case, but she certainly made sure it won't be forgotten. Controversies and criticisms. Welcome back to the murky depths of the Dr. Helen Davidson murder case. In the last section, we unpacked Monica Weller's bold theory that a troubled gardener named George Garbett was the killer. A theory she laid out in her 2016 book, Injured Parties, Solving the Murder of Dr. Helen Davidson. It's a claim that promised to crack a 50-year-old cold case wide open. But here's where things get messy. Not everyone bought it. In fact, Weller's book kicked up a storm of controversy that's just as gripping as the mystery itself. So buckle up as we dive into criticisms, the skepticism, and the unanswered questions that still swirl around this case. Did Weller solve the murder? Or did she just stir the pot? Let's dig in. A theory under fire. Weller's book wasn't just a quiet addition to the true crime shelf. It was a lightning rod. After 7 years of research, she pointed the finger at Garbutt, arguing he killed Dr. Davidson to silence her after she stumbled onto something he didn't want seen. It's a dramatic story, no doubt, but built from interviews, forensic files, and Weller's own determination. But for a lot of readers, it didn't hold water. What hit harder were the accusations that Weller leaned too heavily on shaky sources and dressed up her opinions as fact. Some even took issue with the ethics of it all, especially how she portrayed Dr. Davidson's personal relationships, speculating about the victim's private life without solid evidence. That rubbed people the wrong way, and it's easy to see why. The police stay silent. If the public was divided, law enforcement wasn't rushing to back Weller up either. Thames Valley Police, who kept the case on their books since 1966, have never officially accepted her findings. As recently as a 2021 appeal, they've labeled the murder unsolved, with no new leads confirmed. Weller's claims she handed over fresh info to the Major Crime Investigation Review Team after the book dropped in 2016. But there's been no follow-up, no arrests, no breakthroughs, just silence. That lack of movement says a lot. It hints that while Weller's theory might make for a good read, it hasn't convinced the people who'd need to act on it. A divisive legacy. So what's the takeaway here? Monica Weller's Injured Parties is a polarizing piece of work. On one hand, it's a gutsy swing in a decades-old mystery, pieced together with passion and persistence. On the other, it's been slammed for speculation, inaccuracies, and ethical missteps. Criticisms that have kept it from being the definitive answer she hoped it'd be. The Goodreads crowd laid into its flaws, and the police haven't budged, leaving the case as cold as ever. But here's the kicker. Even with all the backlash, Weller's book did something big. It dragged Dr. Helen Davidson's story out of the shadows and got people talking again. True crime fans, armchair detectives, even casual readers, they're all wrestling with the same question you are right now. Did she get it right? Or did she miss the mark? Flaws and all, Injured Parties has kept this case alive, and that's no small feat. As we move deeper into this story, one thing's clear. The controversy isn't going anywhere. Neither is the mystery. Historical context and location. Nestled in the heart of Buckinghamshire, Hodgemoor Wood isn't just the backdrop to a chilling murder. It's a place with a story all its own. Spanning 250 acres, this woodland is a tapestry of ancient trees and winding paths, a natural haven that's been part of the landscape since at least the 13th century. It's over 700 years of history woven into its roots, making it a living relic of England's past. Designated as a site of special scientific interest, Hodgemoor isn't just beautiful, it's ecologically significant, home to rare plants, animals, or geological wonders that have earned a protected status. In the 1960s, it was a sanctuary for locals. Walkers, cyclists, and horse riders flocked here, drawing by its tranquility and timeless charm. But beneath its serene surface, Hodgemoor Wood holds layers of history and secrets that make it a key player in the mystery of Dr. Helen Davidson's death. A woodland through the ages. Hodgemoor's story begins in medieval times, with records dating back to the 1200s. Parts of it are ancient woodland, Untouched for centuries, their canopies sheltering generations of wildlife and whispers of the past. Other sections are semi-natural, shaped by human hands through planting or management over the years. By the mid-20th century, it was a sprawling mix of dense thickets and open trails, a place where nature and history coexisted. Its longevity adds a mystique. What have these trees seen in their 700 years? Wars, storms, quiet moments of human life, all unfolding in their shadows. A refuge after the war. Hodgemoor Wood's role shifted dramatically in the wake of World War II. From 1946 to 1962, it became a temporary home for Polish refugees displaced by the conflict. For 16 years, this forest transformed into a bustling camp, offering shelter and a fresh start to hundreds of families. Tents and makeshift homes nestled among the trees, sounds of a new community rising from a place usually reserved for birdsong and rustling leaves. By the time the camp closed in 1962, just 4 years before Dr. Davidson's murder, the wood had returned to its natural state. Its time as a refuge left an indelible mark on its identity. A local gem. In the 1960s, Hodgemoor Wood was a beloved escape for the people of Amersham and beyond. Its trails welcomed anyone looking to stretch their legs or breathe in the fresh air. Walkers meandering through the undergrowth, cyclists weaving along the path, horse riders trotting beneath the branches. It's a place of peace, community treasure where Dr. Helen Davidson herself often walked, enjoying the solitude. That familiarity makes her murder all the more jarring. A brutal act in a place meant for respite. A hidden reputation. Here's where the story takes a twist. Monica Weller, in her book Injured Parties, proposes a theory that Hodgemoor Wood had a darker, more secretive side. She suggests it was known as a meeting place for courting couples and homosexuals, who sought the cover of its dense foliage for private encounters. This aligns with her motive for the murder. Dr. Davidson, a respected local doctor, stumbled upon something illicit. Perhaps illegal homosexual activity, still a crime in England until 1967, and was killed to silence her. It's a compelling idea, one that paints the wood as a place of hidden rendezvous, and shadows concealing more than just wildlife. There's a problem. No contemporary evidence supports this reputation. No police logs, no newspaper clippings, no local testimonies from the 1960s confirm that Hodgemoor was a known hotspot for such meetings. Weller's claims hinges on speculation. A tantalizing what-if that adds intrigue but lacks a paper trail. Could it have happened? Absolutely. Remote woodlands have long been retreats for those needing privacy. Yet without proof, it remains a shadowy footnote, one that fuels debate about her theory and the case itself. A stage for tragedy. Hodgemoor Wood is a place with contrasts, ancient and enduring, peaceful yet marked by violence. Its 250 acres offered beauty and escape, a haven for refugees and ramblers alike, until November 1966 when it became the scene of a savage crime. Dr. Helen Davidson's murder shattered its calm, leaving a scar in its history. Weller's theory about its secret reputation holds true or not, Hodgemoor Wood remains central to this unsolved mystery. Silent witness to a story still begging for answers. Comparative analysis with other unsolved cases. When it comes to unsolved murders, Buckinghamshire has its share of lingering mysteries, each with its own haunting tale. Among them is the 1966 murder of Dr. Helen Davidson, a respected local doctor brutally killed in Hodgemoor Wood, a case that, despite its shocking details, doesn't seem to hold the same spotlight as others in the region's history. A review of local reports from the 1960s shows that Dr. Davidson's case isn't listed among recent highlights or appeals, hinting that it slipped from prominence over time. Meanwhile, cold cases from the 1990s and 2000s, while sharing some patterns of community impact, stand apart from her murder, with no direct links to tie them together. This isolation only deepens the uniqueness of Dr. Davidson's story. So how does her case stack up against these other unsolved crimes? Let's explore. Quiet echo from the 1960s. The 1960s were a time of change and unrest, and unsolved murders from that decade in Buckinghamshire reflected a range of tragedies. Yet Dr. Davidson's case doesn't appear to be a focal point in modern discussions or appeals, as noted in local reports. This could stem from several factors. The investigation stalled early, with no arrests or solid suspects despite initial efforts. The trail went cold long before today's forensic tools could take a crack at it. Other cases from the same area might have had more witnesses, more media buzz, or simply more staying power in public memory. Dr. Davidson's murder, isolated, motiveless, and shrouded in silence, seems to have faded into the background. A stark contrast to the attention some of his contemporaries might still command. The pull of newer mysteries. Jump ahead to the 1990s and 2000s. The landscape of unsolved cases shifts. These more recent cold cases often get a brighter spotlight in modern appeals, and it's easy to see why. They benefit from fresher evidence, living witnesses, and the power of advanced forensics, like DNA analysis, that can revive dormant investigations. A murder from 1995 might suddenly break open with a genetic clue, while a 1966 case like Dr. Davidson struggles with degraded evidence and outdated methods. The crime scene of Hodgemoor Wood wasn't sealed off with today's precision, and critical pieces like the burned branch used as a weapon weren't preserved for future breakthroughs. This forensic disadvantage likely keeps her case off the radar of active reinvestigations. What sets Dr. Davidson's case apart? Even among Buckinghamshire's unsolved crimes, Dr. Davidson's murder stands out for its distinct features. The victim, a well-regarded physician with no apparent enemies. Her death defied the usual patterns of violence linked to personal grudges or risky lifestyles. The location. Hodgemoor Wood, a vast and ancient forest, isn't a typical backdrop for murder. Seclusion adds a layer of intrigue. Why there? Why her? The mystery. The attack was savage. Fatal blow to the head, followed by post-mortem violence. Yet there's no sign of robbery, sexual assault, or a clear reason. This randomness sets it apart from cases with more obvious motives. These quirks make her murder a singular enigma, distinct from other cold cases that might follow more predictable threads: domestic disputes, gang ties, or opportunistic crimes. That uniqueness is a double-edged sword. It fascinates those who stumble upon it, but it also resists easy answers or connections to broader patterns. Community impact. A shared wound, a unique scar. All unsolved murders ripple through their communities, and Dr. Davidson's was no different. Her death rocked Amersham, turning her tranquil town into a place of fear and unanswered questions. That community impact mirrors what's seen in other Buckinghamshire cold cases from the 1990s and 2000s. Grief, suspicion, and a lingering sense of injustice. But while those later cases might still have vocal advocates or active inquiries pushing them forward, Dr. Davidson's story is quieted. Decades have passed. Her peers have aged or moved on, and the urgency is dulled. Though interest flared briefly when Monica Weller's 2016 book exploring the case. The lack of direct links to other crimes only reinforces its standalone status, solitary mark on the region's history. A case that lingers. In the end, Dr. Helen Davidson's murder occupies a curious place among Buckinghamshire's unsolved cases. It's less prominently featured than others, overshadowed by the momentum of newer mysteries and the limitations of its 1960s origins. Yet its uniqueness, the victim's stature, the eerie setting, the baffling circumstances, ensures it's not just another forgotten file. While it may not headline modern appeals, it remains a poignant piece of the country's cold case legacy, a mystery that still whispers for resolution after all these years. The murder of Dr. Helen Davidson remains one of Buckinghamshire's most perplexing and unresolved mysteries. A case that has lingered in the shadows since that fateful November day in 1966. Nearly 60 years later, the truth behind her death continues to elude us, leaving a haunting legacy of unanswered questions. Let's draw together the key threads of this complex story and reflect on its enduring significance. Dr. Helen Davidson, a respected physician, woven in the fabric of Amersham, met a violent end in Hodgemoor Wood, crime that shattered a community sense of security. The initial investigation explored theories of a spontaneous killing. Perhaps she'd stumbled upon something she shouldn't have, crossed paths with someone harboring a grudge. Yet those leads faded, and the case grew cold, buried under the weight of time. Then in 2016, Monica Weller reignited the conversation with her book Injured Parties, proposing a bold theory. George Garbett, a troubled gardener with a murky past, killed Dr. Davidson to silence her after she witnessed illicit activities. It's a compelling narrative, suggesting a targeted killing rather than a random act, but it's far from conclusive. Weller's theory, while thought-provoking, lacks official confirmation from Thames Valley Police, and has drawn criticisms for its speculative nature and ethical questions, leaving it as a divisive piece of the puzzle rather than a definitive answer. The evidence, or what remains of it, hints at a deliberate act, possibly tied to Dr. Davidson seeing something she wasn't meant to. But without concrete proof, the case teeters on the edge of speculation. The challenges of resolving such an old cold case are stark. Faded memories, lost physical evidence, and the passage of decades have all conspired to obscure the truth. Weller's controversial approach and the police's cautious stance only underscore how difficult it is to find closure in a case as complex. Yet despite these obstacles, the pursuit of justice endures. Thames Valley Police keep the file open, actively encouraging anyone with information, no matter how small, to come forward. A testament to the belief that even after all this time, resolution is still possible. As of today, Dr. Helen Davidson's murder remains unsolved. An open wound for a community and a poignant reminder of the fragility of safety and the resilience of those who seek answers. The ongoing quest for justice, whether fueled by Weller's theories or the quiet determination of investigators, keeps this story alive. If you know something, Thames Valley Police are still listening. Reach out to their major crime investigation review team or Crime Stoppers. In the world of cold cases, it's never too late for the truth to surface, bringing peace to a mystery that has haunted Amersham for far too long. Until next time, this is Jay Nichol of Nichol Investigations, thanking you for joining us on Ontario Cold Cases. Let's keep telling these stories with the care they deserved, because every case deserves answers, and every victim deserves justice. Subscribe now to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Episodes available wherever you get your podcasts.